This is task 3 from the first sample assessment of business tax. This task is about analysing profits and losses of a partnership and also calculating national insurance contributions. So let's look at the partnership element first of all. So we've got quite a bit of information here, so again, it's a good practice to have a look at the requirements first so that when we're reading through all this information, we know why we're reading it. So it tells us in Part A, calculate the trading profits for each partner by completing the missing entries in the appropriation of profits below. All entries should be stated to the nearest pound. So we've got a table provided for us here. So this is a computer marked activity. So we've got the 3 different partners and a total. Some numbers have been included for us already, but what we need to do is work out the missing numbers. So we've got some information for a period, and then we've got a second period as well, which we need to take into account. Okay, so let's have a look at what the information is given. So we're told that Dino, Danny and Jake have been in partnership for several years. On the 31st of October 24, Jake left the partnership. So what we need to do then is work out what is the impact on their profit share when Jake leaves the partnership. So profits for the year ended 31st of January 25 were 87,800. So that's the total that we need to share between the partners. And if we look at our table, we can see at the moment we've got 54,150 as the figure, and so we need to make sure that that's the 87,800. That's our way of checking that we've done everything okay. So partnership profits are shared as follows. So each partner has an annual salary of 24,000. So we can see that in the salary column we've got 18,000 for each of them. Why is that? Why is not 24,000? Well, because we need to take into account that we have 2 different periods included in our accounts. So we're looking at the period up until the 31st of October 24 and then the period after that. So our accounting year is up to the 31st of January 25. Jake left the partnership on the 31st of October. So 31st of October, let's just count on our fingers. We've got November, December and January. So Jake was not part of the partnership for 3 months and he was part of the partnership for 9 months. So if we take the 24,000 and multiply by 9 months and divide by the 12 months, that gives us the 18,000 that we have for the 9 months. Yeah, that's all 3 partners. And then for the remaining 3 months, well, Jake receives nothing because Jake has left the partnership. And then the other 2 partners receive 3 months worth of salary. So if we take our 24,000, multiply by 3 and divide by 12, that means each of them gets 6,000 salary for the remaining 3 months. So we can see that we've got 18 and 6, that's the 24,000 for the whole year for Dino and Danny. Okay, next then, Dino has a return on capital of 2%. His capital invested is 10,000. So a partnership agreement allows the partners to be paid in lots of different ways. So in this case, it says that Dino is allowed to receive 2% of the capital that he invested in the partnership in the first place. So we have that £10,000 multiplied by 2% is £200. So that's the total return on his capital. So remember, 9 months of that £200 is shown in the first period. That's the 150. And therefore he's allowed a further 50 in the second period for the remaining 3 months. Okay, there's no information about Danny receiving any interest on capital, so she gets 0, and so does Jake, because Jake is no longer part of the partnership. And then we have our profit share as well, so it tells us that profits are shared equally among the partners until the 31st of October. So what we need to do then is work out how much of the profit share needs to be split in the first 9 months. So let's remind ourselves that we've got a total of 87,800 as the profit for the year. And we need to share that between the 2 periods. So 9 months of that, so we take the 87,800, multiply by 9, and then divide by 12. So we want to have a total profit of 65,850. So I'm just putting in this in the wrong cell here, but that's the number we're looking for. Yeah, 65,850 should be this number here, which currently shows as 120,000. Okay, 65,850. So of that 65,850, we've currently allocated 54,150 between the various partners. So that means there's a further 11,700 to share between the partners. So you see in that total column, there's the 65,850. That's 9 months of the year's profit. Okay, and then we're told that that 11,700 is shared equally between the partners. So that means they get 3,900 each. So we just take that 11,700, divide by 3, because there are 3 partners, and they get 3,900 each. So that's how the profit share works for the first period until Jake leaves. And then in the second period, so again, we need to do basically the same sort of thing. So we have our 87,800. Remember, that's our total profit for the year. But we now want 3 months of this. So if we divide by 12 and multiply by 3, that tells us that the total profit for the second period should be 21,950. So if we take off the 12,050 that we have here, that means that the amount of profit that hasn't been appropriated yet is 9,900. Okay, so when we include the 9,900, you see, look, we've got our total of 21,950. And notice in the bottom right of the table, there's the 87,800. Yeah, that's the figure that we have for our total profit for the year. So we know that we've got all our totals right because everything comes to the profit for the year. But then we need to share that profit, don't we? Remember, Jake gets none, so we can put that 0 in. But how do we share the profits? So profits are shared in the ratio of 80 to 20 between Dino and Danny from the 1st of November 2024. So we take that 9,900, we multiply by 80%, which tells us that Dino receives 7,920. And if we multiply by 20%, then it tells us that Danny receives 1,980. So there we are. There's all the profit share for all the partners for the 2 periods. Remember that in our course materials, we have a spreadsheet where you can practice this over and over again until you can get it right. Now let's look at the next part of the question, which is about national insurance. National insurance is included in the reference materials. So for our class 4 contributions, there's a 6% charge for profits between 12,570 and 50,270. And then above that profit figure, they pay 2%. So notice that dividends are not subject to national insurance. Salaries are subject to national insurance. So for employees, they pay 8% between the same 2 thresholds and then 2% above that. But the employer pays a different rate. So the employer pays 13.8% above a threshold of 9,100. And there is an allowance of 5,000, which we deduct from that. So we're told in this case, Blake has assessable trading profits from his sole trader business of 56,000. He also has income from employment of 14,000. And we need to calculate the class 4 national insurance contributions at 6% and the class 4 national insurance contributions at 2%. So the first thing to recognise is that the income from employment of 14,000 is a bit of a distractor for us, because we wouldn't be paying CAS for national insurance on the income from employment. That would be class 1 national insurance. So we don't have to worry about that. We're just focusing on class 4, aren't we? So there are the bands then. Let's remind ourselves, we've got the 12,570 and the 50,270. So let's just do our working here. So we know that we've got a total income of 56,000, haven't we? And up to 12,570, that's going to be 0 national insurance. And then for the next band, so let's just work out what that is. So if we compare these two numbers, we get 37,700. So the next 37,700 is going to be with national insurance at 6%, which equals 2,262. And then anything above that will be at 2%. So we've got a total of 56,000. We take away 12,570 and take away 37,700. So that means there's a further 5,730 where we impose national insurance of 2%. So that's going to be £114.60. So in our answer, the 6% is going to be 2,262. And then for the 2%, it's £114.60, giving us a total of £2,376.60. Okay, let's just read the requirements to make sure that we've covered everything. So we need to calculate Blake's Class 4 National Insurance by completing the table below. State your answers to the nearest penny. Also notice we've not done that because for the first answer we've stated that to the nearest pound. So we need to put in the 2 zeros to make sure that we comply with the instructions. Remember, this is marked by a computer, which is not going to give you any benefit of the doubt, so you just need to follow the instructions.